Welcome back to the channel. This is the Action Figure Grader, and today we're going to look at recent sales for Bronze and Copper Age key issue comics. All of these are CGC 9.8s, and selfishly, most of these books I either own or I would love to own. Okay, so I just happened to start seeing what's selling on eBay over the last week or two, and I noticed a trend for the Bronze and Copper Age books that, oh, I own that book. Oh, I own that book. Oh, I really want that book. So there are, basically this is my way of keeping up with the market, where prices are. And I think I own almost every one of these with the exception of 2 or 3 of them. And I think in general, prices are holding pretty strong. They've kind of come down, obviously, over the last year and a half. But in general, most of these sold right where I would have expected, but there are some surprises on the upper end as well as the lower end, as you would probably suspect if you collect CGC comics. Sometimes there are some deals to be had, and other times I'm like, why did that person pay that price? And for 2 or 3 of these, I did pull up the Go Collect data just to kind of add a little bit more flavor to the discussion. So let's take a closer look. We're going to start off with some Spider-Man books. This is one I do have in my collection. I paid a lot more for mine. I can't believe this one sold as cheap as it did. This is a direct edition of ASM number 238, the first appearance of Hobgoblin. This book has definitely come down a lot, and it is pretty easy to find this one. This was, of course, a 9.8 with white pages. $1,080 in an auction. That is a great deal relative to where this one had been selling over the last month or two. More like $1,200 to $1,300 minimum, and this one in an auction really went below the radar. So great deal, whoever got that one on July 7th. But that's a great cover. Would love to have this one in a newsstand edition, but you can probably, I don't know about double, but pretty close to double what the price will be for a newsstand edition. It's probably come down further since then. I didn't pull up the Go Collect data on this particular book, but that is just a timeless cover by John Romita Sr. and Jr. Awesome cover. This is another one that I do have in the newsstand, which we will cover in a second in more detail, as well as go through the Go Collect data. But this is ASM 252 in a direct edition, and this one had the custom Secret Wars 8 CGC label, 9.8 white pages. This one sold for $10.35, which seems to be a pretty strong price. And then you have the newsstand edition, which is what I do have. This one was listed for $1,500. It sold for $1,400. And if you look at the Go Collect data for the newsstand edition, the highest price ever paid was $42.02, which is mind-blowing how much it's fallen. But the high for the last 90 days is $13.86. The 1-year average is $14.08. The 30-day average is $13.94. So very squarely in that $1,400 price point. Heritage Auctions had one that closed on July 1st. It closed at $16.80, but that's really the outlier. You had another one at Heritage that closed on June 17th for $11.70. So pretty stark contrast there. Basically 2 weeks apart from each other on the same auction house. One sold for $11.70, another sold for $16.80. Who knows? Who knows why that happens? But don't pay $16.80 right now. Obviously, $1,400 is about the going rate for a newsstand ASM 252. Another one I do have that I actually bought mine from Jeff Jacobs. We all, of course, know Jeff Jacob from Star Wars and his incredible collection that's been slowly being sold off on Hakes. His eBay store had this one available in an auction, and I think I paid around $275 for my copy. And this is Web of Spider-Man number 32. No key first appearances, but it's a pretty amazing Mike Zeck cover, and Mike Zeck is one of my favorite comic artists. This might be one of his best. This one and Punisher Limited Series number 1 are probably my 2 favorite Mike Zeck covers. He's got a few really awesome G.I. Joe covers as well, but this cover to me is just awesome. I mean, there's something about the perspective of the gravestone where you're kind of looking up at it, yet Spider-Man is kind of coming at you. He was buried by Kraven because Kraven thought he was dead, and then he comes back to life after having a weird kind of fever dream involving spiders. But long story short is this cover, man. I love this cover. I just think this is one of those classic covers from the late 1980s, back when I was a kid reading comics. I remember getting this one at the newsstand, and I think this cover is one that every Spider-Man fan should have in their collection. So this one sold for $300. This one sold for $325. This one had a little bit of an overwrap too on the binding side, but pretty decent book. And I think for the price point, that's pretty attractive. Some Star Wars books. Here's an example of an overpay. This one was a Star Wars #1, 9.8 white pages. Certainly a beautiful book. $32.50 though, and if you've been following my comic book market updates, you guys know that's too much money right now. Without having looked at the Go Collect data yet, we're getting ready to. $2,500 is kind of the right number right now. Here is where it is. The prices have been a little bit above that lately, and in all fairness, the Go Collect says that the price paid was $30.88. So this one says $32.50 is the sales price. Go Collect says $30.88. So for what that's worth, let's say it's the $30.88, which is a little closer to fair market value. The highest price paid for a Star Wars #1 ever was $10,250. So we are basically 75% off of the high price ever paid for this book. And the 1-year moving average is about 2,900. The 30-day moving average is 2,789. We have seen some sell for below 2,500. 2,500 to 2,600 seems to be about the right number. Heritage, 2 of them sold at 2,640 back-to-back weeks. So that's, I guess, is the right number. 2,500 is probably a little low and wishful thinking, but to me, if you can get it in that 2,600 and under range, I think you're doing pretty well for it. But $30.88, which is what this one sold for, apparently, is a little high. I wouldn't spend that much, although it was a very nice looking copy. Star Wars #6 in a 9.8, a pretty easy book to find in a 9.8. This one had an overwrap as well, did sell at $300. This is part 6 of A New Hope adaptation. Great cover, great looking cover there with Leia in her kind of classic 70s, damsel in distress pose. We've got Luke, and Darth Vader's stylized look there is really cool. I love the colors on Darth Vader there. So that's one I wouldn't mind having. I do not have that book. I wouldn't mind picking that up. Star Wars #81 is one that I have. I overpaid for mine relative to where it is now. This is a direct edition 9.8 white pages. It was listed for $260. The best offer accepted on that was $200, which is about, about 60% less than what I paid for my copy. So I bought mine way too high. It's a great painted cover, The Return of Boba Fett. Now's not a bad time to pick this book up if you're looking for it. I think it's a great book to have if you're a Star Wars fan. $200 for that. I mean, that's a great deal. Batman Dark Knight Returns #1. This is kind of ushered in the Copper Age of comics. Frank Miller story and cover. It's, another classic that I do have. I paid $775 even for mine. This one was listed for $775 and sold for $750. Second copy sold in an auction. 51 bids for $759. Must-have book if you're a Batman fan or any key issue collector. I mean, this is one that you've got to have in your collection. I would love to see this taken to the big screen in a page-by-page adaptation. It would be very cool. I doubt it ever happens. It is pretty violent and pretty dark, and it's kind of a one-shot story. It's not really made for sequels, so I don't know if it'll ever get made. There is a great cartoon, if you have not seen it, that is worth watching. I think Mark Hamill does voice the Joker in that, if memory serves. But this is a great book and one to have. Batman, The Dark Knight Returns #2. I do not have this one, but I do like this cover for some odd reason. It's a little weird. It's a little bulky in terms of how Batman is portrayed. It really does feel like some of the new Frank Miller covers that you're seeing out there that most people crap all over. They don't like. He's done it for like Thor and Hulk and Wolverine, Deadpool. To me, this book is where that art style really started. And I personally like this cover a lot. This was homaged by Todd McFarlane for Spawn as well. But this is a really good, cool book. It's not a key issue relative to Batman The Dark Knight Returns #1, but it's also a lot cheaper at $279. Batman 357, another one I do have. This is the first full appearance of Killer Croc as well as Jason Todd. Kind of a must-have book if you're a Batman fan. Two key characters, both appearing for the first full appearance in this issue. This one sold for $700, which is almost to the dollar what I paid for my copy. We also have some more detail that I wanted to provide on Batman number 423, a classic Todd McFarlane cover. This is another one that if you're a Batman fan, you almost have to have this book. There's a recent book that has Darth Vader in this style, and I don't remember the name of the book. It's not a Star Wars book. It's like Fame, Hayden Christensen. It's kind of like the backstory behind different actors and actresses, how they became famous. And they did one recently for Hayden Christensen. And they did a Darth Vader in this pose where Princess Leia is being held by Darth Vader in the same pose, the same art style as this. And it's a very cool looking cover. This one sold for $21.97, but it says it sold for $21.97, but I looked it up on 130point.com and it actually sold for $16.79, which is closer to fair market value. And then we had this one that was listed for $2,100 that sold for $14.50. So this book is coming down in price. For longest time, even after a market correction in Copper and Bronze Age books, this book was holding steady around $1,700 to $1,750. I think that's about what I paid for my copy. But lately, these last two sales were $14.50 and $16.79. And when you look at the Go Collect data, those two price points are pretty close to where the 30-day moving average is of $15.17 and $16.51 for the one-year moving average. The highest price ever paid for this book was $3,200. There's only 365, which is still a lot, really, but it's only 8% of all the books that have been graded by CGC. Only 8% of them have gotten the 9.8 grade. So for a fairly modern book, it is tough to get this one in a 9.8 relative to other books in the peer group. So, to me, if you're not a Batman fan, then fine, ignore it. But if you're a Batman fan, this book is almost a must-have, in my opinion. In the newsstand, I have not seen a recent sale. I did pull it up on Go Collect to see if there's been any 9.8 newsstands that have sold. And the last one that sold was over 5 years ago, and it was around $420. God only knows what that price would be today, given that the direct edition goes for $1,500 to $1,600, $1,400, $1,500, $1,600. I gotta believe a newsstand is pretty squarely in that $2,500 to $3,000 range, but there has not been any data, recent data on Go Collect's website. Next up, another one I have in a direct edition, but I would love to get in a newsstand. It does not come up very much, and that's Batman number 428, The Death of Jason Todd. This is another key issue and very tough to get in a newsstand. You see them occasionally, okay? It's not like they don't ever come up. You see one every 2 or 3 or 4 months come up on eBay, and they always sell immediately. And this one was overpriced at $9.49. The last sale that I remember prior to this one selling was around $6.50 because I was watching it and I was like, man, I really should buy that book. And I didn't do it, and someone else picked it up very quickly after I decided against it. And this one got listed for $9.50, and I was like, no one's going to pay that. It did have a best offer option on it, and the best offer accepted on it was $6.55, which is right in line with the last sale. So at least the seller was recognized, like, I can list it at $9.50 all I want to, but if it sits for 3 or 4 days, they're going to come back down to earth. And the Go Collect data supports about $6.50 for a newsstand Batman 428, The Death of Jason Todd. It's not a cover for everybody, but it's a really key story from the 1980s that I remember reading when it first came out. And I would love to get that in a newsstand to pair with my direct edition 9.8. New Teen Titans, number 2 in a newsstand 9.8. This one sold in an auction for $4.91. That's way off of where this one used to sell during peak market conditions. It was going for routinely closer to $900 to $1,000. But this book is one where, like, most people don't care about Deathstroke, which is the first appearance in this book. It's a great cover, though. It's one I wouldn't mind having at that price point especially. That's a very attractive price point. Predator number 1 is another one I do have, and I love. This is kind of another, if you grew up in the 80s, Predator number 1, this really should speak to you pretty well. And it's easy to get in a 9.8. It has held its price very well because there have been a lot of media, a lot of movies coming out. We got Badlands coming out. I'm probably going to see it. I have not seen Prey yet, but my wife is out of town this weekend, so I probably will watch that while she's out of town because she has no interest in watching it. But Predator number 1, first appearance of Predator in comics. This one sold for $4.05. I think I paid closer to $4.50 for my copy, so that book has come back down a little bit. Beautiful cover, though, and definitely a key book to have. Transformers number 1 in a direct edition. This one was listed for $9.50 and sold for $8.50. This one is in free fall right now. Even 2 months ago, this was going for routinely over $1,000, $1,100. This one sold for $8.50, so that really shows you how much this one has dropped. That's a good 20-25% drop in price. Now's a great time to pick it up. I did not see any recent sales for G.I. Joe number 1, but I always kind of look at G.I. Joe number 1 and Transformers number 1 to see how they're doing. Transformers number 1 is a lot harder to get in a 9.8 versus G.I. Joe, and usually goes for a lot more money, or not a lot more money, but $100 to $200 more. And to me, if this one's selling at $8.50, that puts G.I. Joe more like $700 to $750 right now in a direct edition. So that's a pretty good price point. I would feel pretty comfortable right now picking up Transformers number 1 in a direct edition 9.8 white pages for $8.50. That's a pretty safe price point, I feel like. Could it go down more? Sure. Any of these can go down. There's a lot of volatility in CGC graded comics, and it's not for everybody. But if this is kind of a book that you've been watching and wanting, and you didn't want to spend $1,500, didn't want to spend $1,300, didn't want to spend $1,100, well, now it's at $8.50. That to me feels like a pretty good buy. It's kind of like Ultimate Fallout 4. I keep watching it drop, and at some point I'm going to pull the trigger on it. A lot of you have commented and say, hey, it's going to be $500 here soon, and I hope you're right. If Ultimate Fallout 4 gets to if it gets in that 500 range, I'm going to be pretty tempted to pick it up. First appearance of Miles Morales. But to me, Transformers number 1, you can't go wrong with it. There's going to be more Transformers content. And while the content has, the movies have been kind of hit or miss, Transformers, was it Prime or Transformers Origins, whatever that cartoon was, looked pretty good. I have not seen it yet. That did pretty well at the box office. Maybe we'll see some more live action content coming up. Some Wolverine books. We got Wolverine Limited Series number 1. This one was, signed by Chris Claremont, Frank Miller, and then a number of other artists, Joe Rubinstein. So it looks like 5 different artists signed this one. 9.8 direct edition. That one sold for $1,100. Big number there, but you're paying a premium because you're getting 5 signatures on it, and that is a beautiful book. Those signatures really do look nice. Nice placement on them. And, a direct edition Wolverine Limited Series is going around $450 to $500 right now. You got to pay about double that to get all these signatures on it. Is it worth it? Depends on if you collect signatures or not. To me, this is a pretty nice looking book. I don't know if I'd pay $1,100 for it, but it would be tempting. I can tell you that. Hulk 340 is another one that has held very well. This one, for the longest time, it was in that $950 range. For a brief moment in time, it got below a $900 number. You get $850-ish, maybe even into the 7s, but it has popped back up just a little bit. This one sold in an auction for $987. This one sold for $1150. I did double check that price to see if that was a legit sale, and it was Jaybird, who specializes in slabs. They also do occasionally have vintage Star Wars stuff, but I bought from Jaybird. And that $1150 number is the sales price according to 130point.com. So that's a little too much. Try to stay closer to that $950 range right now. But I've got 3 of these, 2 of them in a direct, 1 of them in a newsstand. I love this book. Love this book. I think this is one that you should buy and hold forever. It's just an awesome book. New Mutants 98 has really moved up. This one, you know, if you've been following my comic market updates, I told you $950 to $1,000 is about the max I'd pay for it right now. I found several data points recently for between $1,100 and $1,300. This one sold for $1,320 and had an old case CGC 9.8 with white pages. So I don't know why, but Deadpool's first appearance in New Mutant 98, even in a direct edition, there's thousands of them on the census. You don't need to pay a lot for it. But at least lately, this book has really moved back up again, a good solid 20% or so. I found multiple data points in that $1,100 to $1,300 range. But to me, maybe wait for whatever's going on to die down a little bit and try to get it sub $1,000. That's another one I do not have. I would like to pick that up at some point. This is another one in my collection I do have. This is X-Men number 133, first solo story, I believe, for Wolverine. I believe that's correct. This has the Hellfire Club appearance. Great looking book. This is a direct edition. It was listed for $950. The best offer accepted was $902. I paid $930 for mine about a year ago on Comic Link. Just a beautiful book. And, you know, it's kind of a secondary key. I'm not saying it's that important of a book, but it is kind of his first solo story. And, you know, if you're a Wolverine fan, sure. I mean, to me, it's worth having. And another one that I do have, I have this one in a newsstand, and I bought mine on, here's an app. I always forget the name of the app now, but it's like My Slabs or one of those comic book specific apps. It's not My Slabs, it's something like that, but they had a newsstand 9.8 white pages, freshly graded, and it was $950 for a newsstand of X-Men number 141. And I said, yes, please. I bought it immediately. And I'm glad I did, because this is a direct edition and it sold at $10.45. And while I think that might be a little high, very consistently I am seeing a direct edition for X-Men number 141, which is kind of the beginning of the Days of Future Past storyline. This book has been holding up very well and has a number of sales in that 900 to 1,050 range. And then finally, I've got an Uncanny X-Men number 266 in a direct edition, the first full appearance of Gambit. This one sold in an auction for $492. Not a bad deal right there. That's a price I'd pay. That's a price I'd pay right now for Gambit's first appearance. Another easy book to get in a 9.8. The direct edition is. And that price has come back down quite a bit. So if you're looking for that one, I think now's a pretty good time as any. If you can get it sub $500, yes, please. I'd pay that right now. Thanks as always for watching. That is all I've got. Be sure to leave me a like if you enjoyed my comic book content, and I'll be back soon.